Now, we all know that Siri works with many third-party apps for things like messaging, ride-sharing, and payments. But we wanted to make Siri able to do much more for you. And we're doing that by taking advantage of the power of apps with a new feature we call Shortcuts.
Siri Shortcuts is one of the biggest features Apple announced for iOS 12, and it's caused a lot of confusion. Some people think it's voice only, because Siri. Others think it'll need a lot of configuration or is meant just for power users, because workflow. Now, some of that is true, but it's only a partial truth. Let's see if we can clear things up. Siri is a voice assistant. That's how it was introduced with iOS 5 back in 2011, but it hasn't been only a voice assistant since iOS 9. That's when Apple introduced Siri Proactive, Siri Suggestions, and melded Siri Intelligence into Spotlight Search. Since then, Siri's done a ton of stuff without ever hearing or saying a word. And Siri Shortcuts are going to do a ton of stuff for you without any configuration or workflows. Beyond the usual power user stuff, there's an equally important, maybe even more important set of proactive features that are all about the mainstream. I'm going to go as far as to say it's best to think of Shortcuts as two related services. First, a voice triggerable automation for nerds that'll let them do much of what they've always wanted. But two, proactive prompting for mainstream users that'll gently lead them into greater convenience they never knew they needed. And of the two, I think the second one will not only be super easy to get started with, it'll be transformative. For years, we've been slowly, inexorably transitioning from pull to push interface. Pull interface is what most of us are familiar with, going back to the early days of computing. If you want to do something, you go find the app that lets you do it, and then the specific feature within the app. And it involves a lot of tapping or clicking on a lot of icons and menus and tabs and lists, and basically spelunking your way down the OS and app stack hunting for the thing that you want to do. It takes memory, it takes time, and it's part of what made computing confusing and even off-putting to large swaths of mainstream users. Push interface is the opposite. Instead of you drilling down to find what you want comes up to find you. Notifications are a very early example. Instead of launching a messages app, finding a conversation thread, and checking to see if there's anything new you need to reply to, a notification comes in and tells you there's something new. Tap on it and you're taken right to the app. Zero spelunking. Actionable notifications are even better. Instead of hitting a notification to go to an app and then replying, you can act right in the notification. Type your reply, hit send, done. No need to go anywhere or find your way back. But notifications are driven by simple event-based triggers. Someone sends you a message, an alarm or reminder goes off, a sports score, a bit of news comes in, they're reactive. What Apple did with Siri was attempt to become proactive. It built on continuity and extensibility, two main features from iOS 8 in 2014 that remain among the most important ever added to the platform. Continuity, among other things, let apps bookmark and sync not only user data, but actual user activity, where you were in an app and what you were doing in a specific point in time. Extensibility, among other things, broke app bundles down into their component features. Just like websites became so much more powerful through Web API, apps became enormously more convenient through extensions. Instead of switching between multiple apps, extensions could be surfaced in share sheets, filters could be pulled from one app into another, and they could even project interface from your iPhone, for example, into your Apple Watch. And all of it privately and securely. With it, Siri could remember this and bookmark things you were doing across a wide range of apps. It could also suggest apps and even actions like when to leave for a dinner reservation based on signals like time, location, and past actions. It was useful, but it was extremely limited. What Apple's done with iOS 12 and Siri Shortcuts is to start removing those limitations. Not with automation, again, that's for power users, but with suggestions. And it works like this. When apps are enabled for shortcuts, which can be done either with the existing User Activity API or with the new Intents API, Siri keeps track of what you do in those apps and when, and tries to guess what you'll want to do next. Then, instead of you having to do it yourself manually, spelunking as usual through the app stack, Siri will present it to you right before it thinks you'll want to do it, right where you already are in the operating system. Apple showed off a couple examples already, from the lock screen and from the search screen.
So imagine it's the morning, I'm headed to work, and I pick up my phone, and I see this suggestion from Phil's Coffee. Siri has learned that I do this most mornings, so now I can just tap on the suggestion, and I see all the details I need to confirm my perfect mint mojito right here on the lock screen without even going into the app. So let's get caffeinated, and I'm done. Fast forward a little bit, and I'm sitting at my desk at my office, and I need to know when my next meeting is. I'll go to the Up Next widget, and it looks like I'm running a little late for a rather important meeting, so I should probably let someone know. And it looks like Shortcuts is a few steps ahead of me. I could call into the meeting, or I could let the organizer know that I'm running late. I should probably tell Ari what's up. That looks like just what I want to say. Sorry, Ari. Let's send it. Perfect.
It's a really cool way to help mainstream users discover shortcuts at the right time, in the right context, and it couldn't be easier to get started with. Now, sure, if you want to, you can add a voice trigger to any shortcut.
And I can just tap Add to Siri, record my custom phrase, travel plans, and I'm done.
That way you can still initiate those actions anytime you want, and with the convenience of voice, which again removes the need for you to manually hunt down the function you want. And it effectively lets you add skills-like functionality without having to navigate an endless list of skills you wouldn't ever want or need. Because downloading an app indicates you're interested in skill-like functionality related to that app, thereby giving you a much more manageable, relevant list of skills from which to choose. But it's the suggestions, the push interface that I'm most excited about. I've been using the iOS 12 beta for a week now, and in that time my lock screen has offered to put my phone into Do Not Disturb when a wallet pass, open table, and even simply iMessage indicated I might be having dinner or a breakfast or going to a movie. Come this fall, there will be a ton of shortcuts suggested for a ton of people, and the same hundreds of millions of mainstream users who learned to download and manage apps in 2008 with all the initial overhead that involved will learn how to take advantage of shortcuts, and will be another step closer to that next big evolution in human interface. So hopefully that clears up the confusion, but there's really so much more to this and so much more to the way that shortcuts and Siri in general work. And I know it involves a lot of things like machine learning and algorithms that are super complicated, but if you're really curious about them the way I am, you can check out brilliant.org/vector. And that includes some really cool courses on artificial neural networks, including math for neural networks, perceptrons, backpropagation, convolutional neural networks, recurrent neural networks, and that stuff that whenever I read Apple's machine learning blog, when they talk about Siri, I wish I knew, I wish I understood. Now I can. And because Brilliant is sponsoring the show, you can go to brilliant.org/vector and sign up for free. Also, the first 200 people who use that link will get 20% off the premium course. Thank you so much, Brilliant. To be fair, it wasn't all just about the mainstream either. Apple managed to slip in something pretty big for nerds, and that's effectively background workflows. Now, whether it's your iPhone or AirPods for near-field Siri or HomePod for far-field Siri, you're never more than an utterance away from executing your automations, and that's some pretty powerful computing at the tip of your voice. So that's what I think, but I'd love to know what you think. Are you going to use Siri shortcuts? Do they look easy? Do they look complicated? Are you going to let them be proactive, or are you going to set them up in workflows? Hit like, hit subscribe, and then let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you, Jim. And that's Siri Shortcuts. It works on iPhone and iPad, and of course you can run your shortcuts from your HomePod and your Apple Watch. That's your quick update on Siri.